Yeah, that's you guys in the comments telling me to play this, so alright, I'll play the second monkey game just for you guys. Did you guys even watch my Donkey Kong Country video? Because the only thing I saw in the comments of that video was, "But Milky, you are now legally obligated to play Donkey Kong Country 2. But Milky, the sequel is even better." Well, lucky for you, I played it, and I am now here to give all of you my opinion on this apparently legendary game, because for whatever reason, you guys seem to like to hear me yap about old video games. Yeah, it's great, it's great. Hey there, all you beautiful guardians of the glaze. Welcome back to the Milky Donut. If you're new here, this is the Milky Donut. We do all things video games, movies, and pop culture. And if you're not new here, you mean the world to somebody, and I want you to remember that. And even if you don't feel that way, you're always going to be a part of the ever-growing Milky Donut family. Before we yet again jump back into our video game time travel machine, as always, I would like to mention that I do have a goal of reaching 10,000 subscribers as quickly as I can. So if you could go ahead and like this video, leave the glaziest of comments, hype it if you can, and subscribe if you think it's worthy of the algorithm. As always, shout out to the subscriber of the week, Mr. Honest Grifter, and feel free to run this video up because you could be the next MVP. And with all that nonsense out of the way, let's jump back into our video game time travel machine and play Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy Kong's Quest, just to see how much we've gained, or maybe how much we've lost in the world of video games. Well, after I finished Donkey Kong Country, I don't think there was a single video suggestion that I received more, at least in the comments of that specific video, than Donkey Kong Country 2. Not, "Hey Milky, you might want to check it out someday," not, "Hey Milky, if you get around to it." No, apparently by some ancient law of the internet, the moment I finished the first game, I became legally obligated to play the second one. And after seeing comment after comment after comment telling me that this wasn't just a good sequel, but one of the greatest platformers and sequels ever made, my expectations were pretty high. And on top of that, every game that I play that you guys suggest, that bar gets ever so slightly higher. When I first played Donkey Kong Country, I came away extremely impressed. The visuals were absolutely incredible, to the point where I had to actually check to make sure I was playing the SNES version. And if that's not a compliment, I don't know what is. The soundtrack was packed with songs that got stuck in my head for literal days after playing, and the platforming felt fleshed out and extremely satisfying. So going into Donkey Kong Country 2, I expected pretty much more of the same, which would have been perfectly fine. More Donkey Kong Country is not exactly a bad thing, but what I wasn't expecting was for Rare to take nearly every aspect of the original game and somehow improve it. Because that's really what Donkey Kong Country 2 feels like. Not a reinvention, not some wildly experimental sequel. It feels like a group of developers at Rare sat down after finishing the first game, poured themselves a nice old-fashioned, started playing it, and said, "It could be better." And who would have thunk it? Better it could. The first thing that stood out to me was, and here it comes, my favorite word, say it with me, the atmosphere. And yes, I know, there it is again, atmosphere, Milky's obsession. Well, someday when this channel is big enough to have merch, I'm gonna have atmosphere merch and you're gonna love it. But atmosphere really is one of those things that can completely change how a game feels, and Donkey Kong Country 2 absolutely nails it. The original takes place across bright jungles, snowy mountains, caves, and monkey mines. It's colorful and adventurous, but in that very classic Nintendo sort of way. Donkey Kong Country 2 offers you a different feeling. The very moment the game starts, there's this darker, more mysterious tone that's lurking in the background. The pirate theme gives the entire adventure a stronger identity right off the bat, and we'll talk more about the music here shortly, believe me. You're traversing through hostile waters, exploring haunted forests, climbing through abandoned shipwrecks, which just so happen to be the longest ships in the history of ships, and navigating through giant thorn-covered stages, eventually making your way through some pretty wacky locations that somehow still feel like they're all part of the same world. The first game had great environments. The second game feels like an actual journey, and that atmosphere is elevated even further by what might honestly be one of the greatest soundtracks I've ever heard in a video game. And that's coming from a Zelda fanboy, so you know it's good. I know, that's a pretty big statement, but the more I think about it, the more I stand firmly by it. Stickerbush Symphony, Mining Melancholy, Forest Interlude, Hothead Bop, these aren't just good video game songs, they're half the reason why entire levels are so memorable. Golly, there's some bangers in here. As with the original, there were multiple occasions where I found myself slowing down just to listen. Not because the gameplay required it, not because I was confused about where to go, just because the music was that good. And the soundtrack doesn't simply accompany the adventure, it completely defines what it is. It creates a perfect potion of mystery, beauty, loneliness, and adventure that gives the game a personality all its own. And as incredible as the presentation is and as good as the graphics are, the gameplay is where Donkey Kong Country 2 really separates itself from its predecessor. As I mentioned in my DKC video, the original game was heavily focused on momentum, which I really liked. A lot of the fun came from learning how to blast through levels as quickly as possible while maintaining speed. Donkey Kong Country 2 still allows for that style of gameplay, but the platforming feels much more deliberate. The levels are way larger and a lot more varied. There's also a lot more verticality, adding an entirely new dimension to the game. And Rare constantly introduces new ideas to you. One stage revolves around climbing ropes, another uses rising toxic water, another introduces powerful wind currents, and another completely changes how you approach movement. Are you catching my drift? Variety, baby. Every time I thought I had seen everything it had to offer, the game says, you're an idiot, Milky. Another thing that I really found myself to enjoy was how much more meaningful the animal buddies felt this time around, because they were one of my favorite parts of the original. In that they were fun additions but often felt like optional bonuses. Here, there are entire levels that are designed completely around them. Squawks, Enguarde, yes, his name is Enguarde from now on, sorry about it. Squitter and the others aren't just temporary power-ups. Rare actually built unique platforming challenges around their abilities. Some of my favorite levels in the entire game were the ones dedicated almost entirely to a specific animal buddy because they help keep the adventure feeling fresh from beginning to end. And even the bonus content surrounding them feels a lot more fleshed out. They added a lot of personality without overstaying their welcome. Another major improvement comes from the playable characters themselves. In the original, Diddy Kong and Donkey Kong felt a little bit unbalanced when it comes to playability. In Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy and Dixie feel much more balanced. Diddy remains fast and responsive, while Dixie's helicopter spin gives you additional control during difficult platforming sections. There were countless situations where I found myself intentionally choosing one over the other, depending on what a level was asking of me. Instead of one character feeling clearly superior or overshadowing the other, both have genuine strengths. It's a simple change, but it makes a huge difference throughout the adventure. The bosses are yet another area where the sequel improves dramatically. If I had to nitpick anything in the original, I would say that a lot of the bosses feel like oversized versions of regular enemies. Donkey Kong Country 2 gives its bosses far more personality. Each encounter feels distinct. The pirate theme is woven throughout many of them, and the fights themselves feel like actual milestones rather than quick obstacles that are just standing between levels. Are they the hardest bosses ever created? Well, not after just playing Rocket Knight Adventures, but I'll definitely remember them. And that's honestly more important to me. Although I'm not one to back down from a challenge, difficulty isn't everything. While yes, super hard bosses do reward a certain satisfaction that easier ones don't, it's the bosses that I had the most fun with that stick with me for a long time. Perhaps the biggest improvement, however, is the way the game handles its exploration. The original Donkey Kong Country certainly had secrets, but Donkey Kong Country 2 feels built around the idea of rewarding curiosity. Bonus rooms, DK coins, hidden pathways, secret exits, creme coins, the lost world. There's always something worth finding. The game usually gives you subtle clues as well, whether it's a suspicioso banana trail, an oddly placed enemy, or a section of level geometry that looks slightly out of place. There's always something to ever so subtly point you in the right direction. Instead of randomly jumping into walls and hoping for the best like you have to do in a lot of older games, I often felt like the game was kindly encouraging me to investigate without outright holding my hand. The secrets feel hidden but not unfair, and unlike the first game, the rewards actually matter. Finding bonus rooms isn't just about increasing a completion percentage, unless you're one of those players that just needs to 100% every game just for the sake of doing so. The creme coins you collect eventually unlock the lost world, which becomes one of the coolest and most surprising parts of the entire game. And suddenly, every hidden room matters. Every secret feels meaningful. The lost world itself is such a brilliant addition because it gives completionists a genuine goal, not just an OCD compulsion checklist. You're not collecting things simply to watch a percentage counter increase. You're unlocking entirely new levels, some of which are the most difficult levels actually, and some of the most memorable ones. Not only that, but also ultimately rewarding you with a more complete ending, and it gives exploration purpose. What's wild to me is that despite adding more mechanics, more collectibles, more secrets, and more challenge, the game never feels bloated or unfocused. Everything serves the platforming and gameplay experience, never forgetting what you're actually here for. Are you listening to me, modern AAA game studios, or should I say interactive movie studios? Everything serves the pacing and everything feels intentionally placed, which brings us to the question that I kept asking myself throughout the entire playthrough. Is it actually better than the first game? And to be honest with you, my beautiful Guardians of the Glaze, yeah, I think it is, at least technically speaking, but I did have what I would consider to be an even better time with Donkey Kong Country 2 than I did with the first one, and the first one was an absolute banger. And here I was, just thinking that you guys in the comments had just been spending too much time with your boy Milky and my hyperbolism was rubbing off on you, but nope. What's interesting though is that playing Donkey Kong Country 2 actually made me appreciate the original game even more, because I completely understand why some people still prefer it. Donkey Kong Country has a simplicity that makes it incredibly easy to revisit. The island setting is iconic, and I'm a sucker for tropical settings. The pacing is faster, and the levels are shorter and more straightforward. You can blast through the game at full speed and have an amazingly glazy time. And there is something undeniably charming about that. But Donkey Kong Country 2 feels like the ultimate version of what the original had already done so well. Because at the end of the day, the level design in my opinion is even better, the exploration is more rewarding and larger in scope, the bosses are better and more memorable, the animal buddies are a ton more meaningful, the soundtrack somehow manages to surpass an already legendary soundtrack, and the entire adventure feels more cohesive from beginning to end. And by the time I reached the end, I realized Donkey Kong Country 2 wasn't just a great sequel, it was one of those rare, and yes, I mean rare in both senses of the word, games that takes an already successful formula and refines it so thoroughly that it becomes difficult to imagine how it could have been done any other way. If the original Donkey Kong Country is what established the series, then Donkey Kong Country 2 is what sealed it into the Gaming Hall of Fame. And with that, we come to the end of our time travel journey. As always, I had an absolute blast with playing Donkey Kong Country 2, and there's something super comforting about this series that's nice after playing some really difficult games. But do you prefer old games or new games? Let me know in the comments below, and if you want to see more of this, feel free to drop what you want to see next in the comments as well. I do have a really long list, but I do read all of your comments. Even if I can't get around to commenting back or liking it, I do see them, I promise. But always re-comment your recommendations on every single video because it only increases the chance that you'll see me play it sooner rather than later. And repeat comments don't annoy me one single bit. As always, don't forget to like, comment, hype, and subscribe to become a Guardian of the Glaze, and I'll see you next time on the Milky Donut.